I did not come from money. I did not come from silver spoons, quiet estates, old family names, trust funds, sealed documents, or inheritance papers folded neatly in the hands of earthly fathers. I did not come from a house where wealth was explained to me as something natural, expected, and easy. I did not come from rooms where people spoke of investments with peace, or abundance with familiarity, or opportunity as though it were a family member who always knew the way home. But I did come from law. I came from a higher rhythm. I came from the invisible kingdom where the spoken word carries authority, where faith gives command, where divine order moves before the eye can see it, and where no sincere word of truth returns empty. And that, dear listener, is a far greater inheritance than any vault of gold protected by iron doors. For the vault I opened was not hidden in a bank. It was hidden in consciousness. The key was not made of metal. The key was my word. I broke the back of generational lack, not by frantic striving, not by exhausting myself in the worship of hustle, not by proving to the world that I was worthy to sit at the table. I broke it with declaration. I broke it with rhythm. I broke it by speaking divine truth over and over until my inner world could no longer argue, until my nervous system began to agree, until my circumstances had no choice but to rearrange themselves according to the law I had accepted. I spoke my wealth before I touched it. I praised the abundance before it appeared. I blessed the invisible supply while my visible accounts looked empty. I claimed the unseen treasury while those around me wrung their hands over appearances, and I did not tremble, because I knew something they had forgotten. I was not practicing fantasy. I was not decorating fear with pretty sentences. I was not repeating empty words in the hope that chance might have pity on me. I was enforcing spiritual law. Let others speak of luck, bloodline, social class, and human effort. Let them say wealth comes only through family, position, calculation, or struggle. I came from none of those things. I came from truth. I came from the divine word that creates worlds. I came from the eternal principle that what is spoken in faith, held in consciousness, and obeyed in action must finally become visible. I was not born merely of flesh, history, and circumstance. I was born of God. And being born of God, I learned that my supply did not come from what I saw. It came from what I knew. It did not come from panic. It came from peace. It did not come from toil alone. It came from tongue, faith, intuition, and right action. I did not wait to inherit. I declared my inheritance. I did not stand outside doors begging to be chosen. I spoke the word, and the doors began to open. And while the world feared the economy, I feasted upon divine truth, for the word becomes form, the invisible becomes visible. Wealth is not separate from spirit. Wealth is divine substance, clothed in useful matter, moving through right channels, serving right purpose, arriving by right timing. Do you understand what this means? Your next fortune is not merely out there somewhere, lost in the distance, waiting for a stranger to approve you. It is already encoded in the secret place of your consciousness. It is already hovering in divine mind. It is already waiting for the sound of law to call it into expression. You do not need to beg money. You need to become still enough to receive instruction and bold enough to speak the word. You need rhythm. You need authority. You need a spiritual confidence that does not apologize for the good God has already assigned to you. You need speech that is not frightened by your current circumstances, speech that does not bow before a temporary number, speech that speaks as though the prayer has already been answered, because in divine mind, it has. You do not merely inherit gold, you inherit the word. And when you speak that word in season, when you decree divine law while everything around you shouts limitation, when you anchor yourself not to your family history but to divine order, then all that belongs to you must come forward. It cannot remain hidden forever. Spiritual law obeys the spoken word. It does not obey complaint. It does not obey silent resentment. It does not obey worry. It does not obey vague desire. It obeys clear, faithful, repeated, authoritative speech. So I ask you now, whose voice is shaping your fortune today? Is it the voice of your ancestors? The voice of your fears? The voice of the news? The voice of people who survived but never learned to reign? Or is it the voice of the I am within you? You may not come from money, but if you come from law, you come from the true vault. That vault does not run dry. That vault cannot be stolen. That vault is built upon the eternal rhythm of creation. Let there be. It responds not to begging, but to agreement. Not to striving, but to spiritual speech. Let the world keep its trust funds and titles. I have a higher trust. I have a divine estate. I have an invisible inheritance that becomes visible every time I speak in harmony with truth. And now, I speak to you. Rise. Speak. Step forward as the first in your family, not merely to earn wealth, but to remember it, to declare it, to call it into rightful expression. For if you come from law, you come from the highest bloodline in existence. No curse, no pattern, no inherited fear, no old family sentence can outrun a spoken word backed by divine knowing. There is a poverty no one names aloud, yet almost every soul has felt it. It is not always the absence of money. It is the vibration of lack. It is the family agreement whispered through worn-out phrases, tired sighs, fearful prayers, and unquestioned expectations. It is not written in a will. It is not signed by lawyers. It is carved into the language of households. It is hidden in the mother who says, "We will get by." It is hidden in the father who mutters, "There is never enough." It is hidden in the child who learns too early not to ask, not to dream too high, not to expect heaven to open windows for them. And though no one says it directly, the unspoken doctrine becomes stronger than truth in many homes. Money is hard. Wealth is for others. People like us do not receive that kind of good. We must be careful. We must stay small. We must survive. That is the inheritance many people accept without knowing they have accepted it. They learn to tiptoe through life, afraid to disturb the invisible rules of struggle. They never question the ancestral patterns that have hardened into identity. But I tell you now with love and authority, you are not your family's struggle. You are not their scarcity. You are not the echo of their fear. You are not the continuation of their limitation. You are not caution made flesh. You are the interruption. You are the reversal. You are the holy contradiction to every story they endured but never questioned. You are the spoken law that breaks the pattern. And to become that, you must renounce not their love, but their limitation. You must stop protecting the voice of lack simply because it sounds familiar. You must stop romanticizing struggle simply because it was endured with dignity. You must stop mistaking inheritance for imitation. Yes, honor the hands that raised you, but do not adopt the fear that shaped them. Yes, bless those who came before you, but do not bow to the ceiling they could not break. You carry more than blood. You carry language. You carry subconscious agreements. You carry repeated phrases, emotional habits, and family expectations. And unless those agreements are brought into the light of spiritual law, you may find yourself repeating what you promised yourself you would transcend, not because you chose it consciously, but because agreement is magnetic. The tongue is the pen of the heart, and for many years the tongue of your family may have written lack upon the walls. But now, the pen is in your hand. You must write something new. You must write wealth into your walls. You must write divine supply into your lineage. You must change the rhythm of your bloodline by changing the rhythm of your voice. I know what it is to love people who feared money. I know what it is to respect the hands that labored while refusing the beliefs that limited them. I know what it is to stand between gratitude and destiny, between loyalty and liberation. But I also know this. Agreement with fear is not love. Agreement with limitation is not honor. Repeating a family wound is not faithfulness. The day I said, "No more," I choose law over legacy. Something broke in the unseen. I felt it. A spiritual cord loosened. a generational spell dissolved. A new rhythm began moving through me. It was a rhythm that did not apologize for expansion. It did not flinch at wealth. It did not wear smallness like a virtue. It was then I remembered that I was an heir, not merely of earthly history, but of divine promise. I was not only the daughter of a family line, I was the child of divine supply. I was not an heir of struggle. I was an heir of law, and so I spoke that inheritance into form. I said, I am the heir of divine wealth. I am the child of unfailing supply. I am the vessel through which my entire family line rises into a higher rhythm. And when I said it, I meant it. And when I meant it, heaven moved. For heaven does not respond to desperation as much as it responds to dominion. It listens to heirs. It listens to faith. It listens to those who no longer ask, am I worthy? But declare, this good is mine by divine right, and I receive it in perfect order. Beloved, you are not here to carry their weight forever. You are here to close the cycle. You are here to speak a better word. Every time you say, I receive, you speak for those who never knew they could. Every time you say, I am the first, but not the last, you become a gatekeeper of divine reversal. You become the vault opener. You become the curse breaker. You become a new law in motion. There comes a moment in every awakened life when the soul stops rehearsing the story of what has been and begins declaring the law of what must now become. It is a rare moment, a holy moment, a quiet moment that changes everything. It is the moment when you no longer argue with your reflection. You no longer plead for permission from the ghosts of old beliefs. You no longer ask struggle politely to move aside. You rise in the name of divine order and say, I choose a different inheritance. For me, that moment did not come with thunder. It did not arrive with applause. No one clapped. No one congratulated me. No outward sign confirmed that anything had changed. It was quiet. It was sacred. It was a stillness that rose within me like fire covered in gold. I remember standing before the mirror, the same kind of mirror where generations before me had adjusted their dreams downward. And in that silence I heard, not with my outer ears, but with the inner faculty of spirit, you do not have to carry their fear. You came to reverse it. That was the day I changed my name in consciousness. Not my earthly name, my spiritual name. I moved from legacy to law, from survival to supply, from borrowed beliefs to bold dominion. That day I looked at the inherited identity within me and said, I see you. I honor the road that brought me here, but I do not serve you anymore. The law does not need your family's permission. The law does not wait until everyone understands. The law does not ask whether your environment approves. The law moves when you speak. And I spoke. I said, I am the first to receive what was always mine in spirit, not what I earned through panic, not what I proved through exhaustion, but what was prepared for me in divine mind before I even knew how to ask. And when I spoke, heaven did not hesitate. It responded according to agreement, for law is always listening, not merely to passing emotion, but to repeated declarations, settled assumptions, and words spoken with spiritual conviction. That day, I made the most liberating declaration I had ever dared to utter. I choose divine law over family legacy. I choose inheritance by spiritual speech, not inheritance by sympathy. I choose to be the first, not because I am better, but because I remembered first. This was not rebellion. It was remembrance. It was not betrayal. It was obedience to spirit. It was not arrogance. It was alignment. And as I walked forward with this new spiritual name, I could feel the old world trying to call me back. I could hear those familiar phrases, be realistic, do not talk too boldly, that is not how we were raised, do not expect too much. Who do you think you are? But I had changed frequency. I had tuned myself to a station my ancestors may never have known they were allowed to hear. From that day forward, I vowed never again to let the volume of inherited limitation drown out the melody of spiritual law. I vowed never again to choose belonging over breakthrough. I vowed to speak, walk, give, receive, and expect as one who knows truth. No one can pass down what they never possessed. But the law of God was mine from the beginning, and it is yours from the beginning. So now I invite you to your turning point. You who feel divided between honoring where you came from and becoming who you are called to be. You who feel guilty for wanting more than your family imagined. You who still whisper your declarations in secret, afraid to speak them aloud. Let today be the day. Let this be the moment you say, I am the first in my line to remember the law. Say it trembling if you must. Say it quietly if your courage is still waking. Say it with tears if your heart is tender. But say it. Heaven does not require your perfection. It requires your permission. And when you speak with sacred remembrance, when you speak with gentle defiance against lack, when you speak with unwavering agreement with divine supply, your entire lineage begins to shift. Not because everyone followed you, but because you finally followed truth. The first law that shattered poverty's spell over my consciousness was the law of substitution. It is simple to understand, but radical to practice. It means this: replace the lie with truth. Replace fear with faith. Replace lack with law. Replace the sentence of limitation before it becomes the atmosphere you live in. Consciousness is never neutral. It is either echoing the world or announcing heaven. It is either repeating appearances or creating through divine agreement. And the soul who would rise must learn to interrupt its own inner conversation with spiritual authority. I saw this clearly when I realized how many of my thoughts were not truly mine. They were borrowed. They were inherited. They were phrases repeated so often that I mistook them for wisdom. Money does not grow on trees. Do not get your hopes up. We cannot afford that. Life is hard. People like us have to struggle. These were not harmless sayings. They were small spells. They were verbal agreements with a lower order. They were magnetic frequencies that pulled my life downward every time I allowed them to pass through my mind and mouth. I knew that if I did not change my words, I would never change my world. So I began to practice substitution as a sacred discipline, not casually, not occasionally, not only when I felt inspired. I practiced it as one practices prayer. Whenever fear whispered, "You are behind," I answered, "I walk in perfect timing, with divine supply." When my bank account tried to preach a sermon of limitation, I interrupted it with, "Money comes to me now, richly, freely, and in perfect ways under grace." When worry tried to narrate my future, I cut it off and declared, "My future is already provided for by divine intelligence." When an old family phrase rose in me like a familiar shadow, I did not entertain it. I replaced it. I spoke truth in its place, until truth became more familiar than fear. The world may call this denial, but I knew better. I was not denying reality. I was denying illusion the right to govern me. I was not ignoring facts. I was installing truth above facts. For truth is not passive. Truth is a sword. Truth is a law. Truth is the voice the universe recognizes as authority. Every time I substituted fear with the spoken word of God, I was not merely changing my mood. I was enforcing divine order in my inner world. And what is established within must eventually appear without. At first, it was not easy. The old phrases were stubborn. They had history behind them. They had the sound of familiar kitchens, familiar faces, familiar disappointments. They carried the logic of survival. But the law does not bow to memory. The law bows to voice. So I persisted. I traded every sentence of worry for a declaration of wealth. I exchanged every sigh of lack for a word of divine sufficiency. I went to war with my inner language, not with anger, but with authority. Slowly, my atmosphere changed. I felt it before I saw it. Fear began to thin. Doubt began to loosen. Shame began to lift. In its place came a golden silence. I changed, knowing that what I had declared was already moving toward visibility. The law of substitution is the sword you must draw if you are to cut away inherited language. It is not enough to love your family. You must speak a higher rhythm than the one they knew. It is not enough to desire wealth. You must replace every inner voice that says, "It is too late, too far, too much," with the voice of law that says, "It is done. It is mine by divine right. It is arriving now in perfect order." Say it again. It is done. It is mine. It is arriving now. This is the way of law. It does not argue. It replaces. It does not negotiate with fear. It declares truth until fear has no dwelling place left. You are not here to maintain the old spell. You are here to reverse it. You are here to speak what should have been spoken generations ago. You are here to install a vocabulary of victory where there was only the muttering of survival. And you will do it not by force, not by chance, but by substitution. Fear becomes faith. Delay becomes decree. Echo becomes law. So begin today. When fear speaks, override it. When doubt whispers, interrupt it. When an old pattern rises, cast it out with the word. For your future does not belong to what you feel in a passing hour. It belongs to what you declare, repeat, believe, and embody. And the law of substitution will never fail a voice that refuses to echo fear. The second law that turned my life from financial drought into divine downpour was the law of prosperity. And let me be clear from the beginning. Prosperity is not a reward. It is not the prize of perfect behavior. It is not the wage paid to spiritual performance. It is not a random blessing that lands on a few and ignores the rest. Prosperity is law. It is current. It is divine substance in motion. It is the natural circulation of good through a consciousness that is willing to receive, bless, direct, and release. Until you see prosperity as law, you will beg where you should declare. You will delay where you should receive. You will exhaust yourself where alignment was needed. You will mistake overwork for worthiness and anxiety for responsibility. I learned this not in comfort, but in necessity. I learned this law when everything I touched in the material world seemed to dry up. I gave. I prayed. I planned. I worked. I calculated. Still, nothing flowed as it should have flowed, because deep inside I still believed that wealth came from effort alone. I had not yet made the full substitution from man's economy to God's economy. I still believed my good had to be earned instead of accepted. I still believed supply was limited instead of infinite. I still believed I had to chase my blessing instead of allowing it to arrive through right channels. But the law of prosperity does not respond to exhaustion. It responds to truth. It does not need your panic. It needs your agreement. And agreement is established through speech, faith, and right action. So I began to speak daily, hourly, almost like breath. Money comes to me now under grace, in perfect ways, through divine order. I said it when I was owed and not yet paid. I said it when bills lined the table like soldiers. I said it when my feelings mocked me. I said it when my mind tried to calculate how impossible it all looked. I said it not because I felt prosperous, but because law does not follow emotion. Law follows word. Every time I spoke it, I was shifting accounts in the invisible. I was drawing divine substance from unseen channels into visible expression. I was preparing my consciousness to receive what had already been released in spirit. For in divine law, money does not appear merely through strain. It appears through order, and order is spoken before it is seen. Then I understood the hidden arrogance of financial anxiety. To worry constantly about money is to assume that personal effort is the only source. To panic over bills is to forget that divine supply is infinite. To bow before appearances is to insult the goodness of God. So I repented, not with shame, but with clarity. I released the belief that I was my own provider. I canceled the subconscious religion of hustle. I stepped out of the temple of overwork and entered the sanctuary of spoken wealth. And the results did not merely trickle. They began to flow. Ideas came. Delayed payments were released. Unexpected channels opened. People remembered my name. Opportunities appeared from directions I had not considered. Not because I earned heaven's favor through exhaustion, but because I aligned with what was already true. I allowed. I agreed. I believed that what God has assigned cannot be blocked by man, delayed by numbers, or denied by time. If you are to rise, you must install the law of prosperity deep into your vocabulary. Wealth is not your master. Money is not your God. Increase is not something you worship. Money is a messenger. It is a servant. It is a visible expression of invisible supply. When rightly understood, it becomes useful, clean, obedient, and blessed. Speak prosperity when you feel unworthy. Speak prosperity when the digits say otherwise. Speak prosperity when fear wants to count every possible loss. The digits are not your source. God is your source. Divine substance is your source. Infinite intelligence is your source. And that source does not run dry. It does not tremble. It does not require permission from the economy. It listens for covenant speech. It listens for the voice that says, I am ready now. Not because I have exhausted myself enough, but because I finally remember the truth. I was not created to toil for treasure in fear. I was created to speak, receive, circulate, and bless. This is the law of prosperity. To see money not as master, but as messenger. To see increase, not as accident, but as divine flow. To live with the quiet certainty that heaven's vaults are activated by faith-filled speech, right consciousness, and obedient action. Every declaration spoken in truth is like a spiritual withdrawal slip, signed by the authority of divine law. The third law that changed everything for me was the law of command. This law turned the tide swiftly, not because it was loud, but because it was final. The law of command does not beg. It does not plead. It does not wait helplessly. It does not negotiate with circumstances. It decrees. It declares. It speaks, and then it stands. This is the law that separates the spiritual child from the spiritual heir. It separates the one who hopes from the one who knows. Until you learn to speak, not merely wish, not merely repeat, not merely hope, but command from divine authority, you remain at the mercy of appearances. You must remember what I remembered. Heaven does not respond to emotional noise in the same way it responds to dominion, and dominion is always vocal. Dominion has a voice. Dominion walks into the room and says, "Let there be," even when the room appears empty. Dominion stands in lack and says, "Supply, come forth." Dominion looks at confusion and says, "Divine order now governs this." Dominion understands that silence can become agreement with appearances, but speech becomes agreement with law. The law of command changed my life when I stopped narrating my fears and started legislating my faith. There is a difference. Many people think they are praying when they are only panicking out loud. They think they are declaring when they are only describing what frightens them. But the law is not moved by description. It is moved by decree. So I began to speak to everything as if it could hear me, because in the spiritual realm, all substance responds to law. I spoke to money. I spoke to clients. I spoke to contracts. I spoke to checks. I spoke to opportunities not yet visible. I spoke to invisible streams of income as though they were standing before me, waiting for instruction. And I did not ask them timidly to come. I commanded them under divine law. I said, "I now command all riches ordained for me to appear swiftly, in perfect order, under grace, and without delay." I said it with my back straight, my heart lifted, my eyes focused not on what I had, but on what I had already claimed in spirit. Then I realized something powerful. I was not waiting for money. Money was waiting for me, waiting for my instruction, waiting for my voice, waiting for me to stop speaking like a beggar and start speaking like an heir. Money is not your master. It is your servant. And like any servant, it responds to clear instruction. If you speak with confusion, it scatters. If you speak with guilt, it avoids you. If you speak with fear, it hesitates. But if you speak with clarity, conviction, gratitude, and divine authority, it comes into right place. It comes through proper channels. It serves the purpose assigned to it. So I ask you now, when was the last time you commanded? When was the last time you stopped asking for what has already been provided in spirit and announced it with divine confidence? When was the last time you looked your bills in the face and said, I do not answer to numbers. Numbers answer to divine law. That is not arrogance. That is alignment. That is faith speaking its native language. The law of command is not something you use once and then abandon. It is something you become. You become the decree. You become the instruction. You become the voice of order in your own life. When you stop softening your words to make fear comfortable, when you stop apologizing for what you are calling in, when you speak as one who knows supply cannot be denied, your world begins to obey, because the world was made by word, and it still responds to word. So today, speak as one who commands, not with noise, but with knowing, not from panic, but from fullness, not to convince the world, but to announce what has already been established in divine mind. For when you speak with spiritual command, you are no longer a victim of delay. You are the voice that opens vaults. There is a cruel illusion that haunts many souls on the spiritual path. It is the illusion of delay. It whispers, you are late. It taunts, you missed your chance. It chants, everyone else arrived before you. If you do not understand the law of divine right timing, that illusion will weaken your spirit, strangle your faith, and make you doubt what is already on its way. But hear this clearly. Divine order is never confused. Divine rhythm is never careless. Spirit is not sluggish. The law of right timing is precise. Once I understood this, I stopped treating time like a tyrant and began treating it like a servant. I stopped bowing to calendars. I stopped begging the clock. I stopped saying, maybe someday, as though time itself were my provider. I began declaring the moment. The law of divine right timing does not mean sitting passively while life passes by. It means aligning your consciousness, your speech, and your actions so that the visible world must follow divine order. The minute you speak the word in faith, the machinery of heaven begins to move. Invisible gears turn. Right people are stirred. Right paths are opened. Right ideas are released. The delivery system of spirit is activated. But here is where many people interrupt their own good. They speak faith, and then they speak fear. They place the order, and then they cancel it with worry. They declare prosperity, and then they say, but what if nothing happens? They bless the future, and then they curse the timing. So I had to learn to hold my peace in the hallway. I had to learn to say, what is mine cannot be late, even when appearances suggest otherwise. I had to stop measuring truth by time and begin measuring time by truth. Time is not your ruler. Time is your canvas, and what you paint upon it with your words becomes your experience of it. I remember seasons when nothing seemed to move. The check had not arrived. The opportunity had not opened. The door still looked closed. The evidence said no. But I refused to change my confession. I kept saying, my harvest is on schedule. I said it when people asked, are you sure this is working? I said it when others appeared to pass me by. I said it when impatience tried to drag me back into old language. I said it because I knew divine timing is never early, never late, never wrong. It is exact. It is efficient. It is calibrated to the highest good, and it responds not to the anxious heart, but to the faithful word. The law of divine right timing taught me to speak as though what I had asked for was already walking toward me. I prepared the table before the guest appeared. I opened the envelope before the letter arrived. I gave thanks before the evidence changed. Faith does not wait for signs. Faith gives signs. Faith does not require evidence. Faith becomes evidence. When you live by this law, your rhythm changes. You are no longer frantic. You are no longer comparing. You are no longer postponing your peace until the outer world behaves. You live in the knowing that your life is unfolding on schedule. not by fate, but by decree, not by accident, but by divine agreement. Say this now: what is mine is on time. What is mine is arriving now. What is mine cannot be delayed, because divine law has already released it. Let that be the rhythm of your days. Let it be the drumbeat beneath your breath. When doubt whispers its deadlines, look it in the face and say, "You are not my clock. Spirit is my clock, and spirit is never late." The law of divine right timing is not a passive waiting room. It is active agreement with the eternal now. It is a declaration that says, "Because I have spoken in alignment with law, this hour is holy. This moment is working. This day is delivering." Never again speak delay as though it were truth. Never again say, "Maybe next year," when Spirit has given you the word now. Never again defer your dominion to a future moment. When you speak in alignment with divine order, time bows, doors open, angels move, supply obeys, and you no longer wait in fear. You walk in faith. The fifth law, the final and foundational law, is the law many skip. It is the law of identity. It is the soil in which every other law takes root. It does not ask, "What do you want?" It asks, "Who are you?" Every declaration, every financial command, every prosperity affirmation will struggle to bloom if it is not rooted in a transformed self-concept. The outer world is only ever an echo of the inner image. Until you become wealth in consciousness, the world will hesitate to mirror wealth in form. Until you see yourself as chosen, equipped, guided, crowned, and authorized by divine law to circulate abundance, you may speak prosperity while still identifying with poverty. And law cannot fully override identity. It must emerge from it. So I say to you with spiritual authority, you do not get wealth. You become it. You do not attract money from outside yourself, as though it were foreign to you. You express wealth from within. You do not climb desperately into prosperity. You remember that divine supply has always been your truth. The moment you stop identifying with the struggler, the hustler, the forgotten one, the one who barely survives, the moment you renounce that false lineage and step into who you are in spirit, the world begins to respond differently. The world can only reflect your accepted identity. It cannot outdo your self-image. It cannot manifest beyond your definition of yourself. The law of identity is exact. It does not ask, "What do you hope for?" It asks, "Who do you believe you are?" I began to rise when I stopped asking for more money and began declaring, "I am the wealth of God made visible." At first, the words felt almost too large for my mouth. My circumstances laughed. My bank account objected. My history protested. Some people would not have understood, but I kept saying it. I am the wealth of God made visible. Slowly, the shadows began to lose authority, not because I argued with them, but because I refused to identify with them. I stopped dressing my consciousness in lack. I stopped walking as though scarcity owned me. I stopped agreeing with the smaller version of myself that had been shaped by fear, trauma, apology, and ancestral caution. I stepped into a new vibration, not only in word, but in posture, pace, breath, gaze, and expectation. I declared not only prosperity, I declared identity. I became the new lineage. And once you become the new lineage in spirit, the world must make room. You cannot be both the victim and the vessel. You cannot speak abundance while seeing yourself as someone begging for a seat at the table. You are not outside the feast. You are not waiting beyond the gate. You are not a stranger to supply. You are the table. You are the vault. You are the law made visible when you remember your name. And your name is not barely getting by. Your name is not almost enough. Your name is not trying so hard. Your name is divinely funded. Your name is permanently supplied. Your name is heir of spiritual dominion. Until your identity matches your declaration, your world may hesitate. But once they align, wealth has no choice. It appears not as a surprise, but as a mirror. So say it now with no apology. I am the wealth of God made visible, not because every outer number already agrees, but because identity precedes evidence. The law is not waiting for you to earn it. It is waiting for you to own it. Once you own it, once you wear the garment that always belonged to you, once you stop renting the image of success and begin inhabiting the truth of abundance, money becomes a servant, not a savior. Riches become rhythm, not rescue. Wealth becomes your natural extension, not your desperate prayer. This is the law of identity. It does not ask the world to change first. It asks you to remember who you are, and then speak from there, walk from there, command from there, receive from there. For when you speak as wealth, the world becomes rich in your reflection. Before any outer change can take root in your life, the inner voice must be rewritten. The silent narrator of your decisions must be sanctified by truth. The voice beneath your purchases, your pauses, your expectations, your fears, your yeses, and your nos must be brought under divine order. Let me say it plainly. The reason many people never experience the laws they study is because the voice of their inner inheritance is louder than the voice of divine instruction. They speak affirmations in the morning, but their inner voice whispers contradiction by night. They say, "God is my supply," but beneath every choice there is a hidden script. What if there is not enough? What if it does not come? What if I am foolish to believe? What if this is for others, but not for me? That script must be burned, not with hatred, with light. It must be replaced by a new narrator, one that does not echo what was, but proclaims what is. I had to confront every phrase I inherited, every subtle, destructive sentence disguised as common sense. We cannot afford that. Money does not grow on trees. Do not get your hopes up. Better safe than sorry. Rich people are greedy. Be careful, because good things do not last. These were not merely sentences. They were spiritual contracts with limitation. They were agreements with poverty. They were disguises worn by fear, and I began to cancel them out loud. I did not simply speak new affirmations over old poison. I revoked the old speech. I said, I no longer consent to this language. I break this verbal lineage now. I release every family phrase that contradicts divine supply. For you cannot plant new declarations in soil still poisoned by old speech. The ground must be cleared. The frequency must be reset. The inner voice must match the spoken word. So I gave myself a holy task. Every time the old voice said, "You cannot," I answered, "Through divine intelligence, the way is already made." When it whispered, "Be careful," I responded, "I am divinely guided and divinely protected." When it cried, "That is too much," I replied, "My supply is unlimited, and divine order governs every exchange." When it said, "You do not know how," I declared, "The next right step is revealed to me now." I treated every thought like a messenger to be examined, every phrase like a seed to be accepted or refused. The more I answered fear with law, the more my inner voice changed. It stopped sounding like my past. It stopped sounding like family anxiety. It stopped sounding like culture, struggle, and inherited caution. It began to sound like spirit. It became my compass. It became my counselor. It became the clear inner confirmation that I had crossed from fear into faith. If you are to rise through the laws I have spoken, this work cannot be skipped. You must become aware of what you say to yourself when no one is listening. You must catch the whisper before it writes the next chapter. You must memorize new phrases as though your life depends upon them, because in a very real spiritual sense, it does. So I offer you these substitutions. Instead of saying, "I cannot afford it," say, "My divine supply covers every right need with ease." Instead of saying, "Nothing ever works for me," say, "Everything I speak in truth works in perfect good order." Instead of saying, "I do not know how," say, "Divine intelligence shows me the way." Instead of saying, "It is too late," say, "I am right on time in divine rhythm." Instead of saying, "I am afraid to receive more," Say, I receive my good with gratitude, wisdom, and peace. Instead of saying, money leaves me, say, money circulates through me in blessed ways and returns multiplied under grace. Do not treat these as casual sentences. Make them rituals. Let them play in your mind like sacred music. Let them interrupt every lesser voice until your inner world sings in harmony with heaven. The inner voice is not merely a reflection. It is a generator. When it is rewired by truth, your entire life becomes a speaker through which divine law takes form. Speak this now. I no longer chase, I command. I no longer beg, I declare. I no longer echo fear, I speak from divine law. Let this echo within until no other voice remains. For once the voice inside aligns with law, there is no resistance, only rhythm. Wealth flows not because of what you said once, but because of what you now believe always. If the tongue is the pen of the Spirit, then every word writes the condition of the next chapter. You do not merely describe life. You design it. You do not simply respond to money. You author its movement with language. Your mouth is not a machine for commentary. It is an instrument of creation. Yet most people live unaware of the power sitting beneath their own nose. They spend words on worry. They fill rooms with fear. They call it realism, and wonder why miracles do not enter. But the words you allow to remain on your tongue either license your wealth or sabotage it. Your tongue is your signature. It signs agreements in the invisible. It approves or cancels what heaven is ready to deliver. When I began to live from the law of identity and retrain my inner voice, I knew belief alone was not enough. I needed rhythm, not occasional declarations, not emergency affirmations spoken only when panic rose. I needed daily sacred speech that walked with me like armor, compass, and decree. So I formed 3 declarations to speak every morning before I touched the world. They were not suggestions. They were non-negotiable. They were my tithe of the tongue. They were my spiritual protocol. They proved to my own soul that I had decided to govern, not grovel. I give them to you now, not as poetry, but as practice. Say them until your bones believe. Say them until your environment rearranges. Say them until they are no longer affirmations, but facts. Declaration 1. All I need is already arriving. This sentence is the antidote to panic. It cancels the worship of hustle. It affirms divine right timing and denies the illusion of delay. It reminds your body that it is not the source, it is the receiver. It tunes your awareness to see what is already flowing toward you, and it prevents you from contaminating blessings with doubt. It is the sound of confidence in divine order. It is the rhythm of arrival. Declaration 2. My voice is the vault. This changed everything for me. When you understand that your mouth is not merely a mirror but a master key, you stop speaking like a prisoner. You stop repeating what you see and begin instructing what must be. You stop looking desperately for doors and begin speaking doors open. This declaration aligns you with the law of command. It places authority where it belongs, not in the economy, not in the job, not in the algorithm, not in another person's approval, but in your spiritually aligned voice. Your voice is not only for expression, it is for extraction. It calls forth what belongs to you in divine order. Declaration 3. Large sums come to me now under grace. Simple, direct, final. I have spoken it in rooms where I had nothing visible to support it. I have spoken it walking past windows I could not yet enter. I have spoken it with tears in my eyes and power in my lungs. And every time I spoke it with authority, the law answered. This declaration is not a wish. It is a spiritual motion. It calls forth clients, contracts, checks, opportunities, inheritances, partnerships, ideas, sales, gifts, and right channels, without strain and without shame. This is the language of the wealthy in spirit. Now understand this clearly. These sentences are not magic because you say them once. They are not emergency spells. They are training. They are reprogramming. They are identity reinforcement. They are spoken evidence of your new consciousness. Speak them when you rise. Speak them before sleep. Speak them when the bill arrives. Speak them when the email delays. Speak them when fear flares. Speak them not merely to calm your mind, but to command your world. Wealth lives where the tongue is trained. What you speak with certainty, rhythm, and divine agreement must eventually appear. Say them with me now. All I need is already arriving. My voice is the vault. Large sums come to me now under grace. Do not whisper as one who doubts. Speak as one who remembers. Do not stop until your bank account agrees. Do not stop until your environment adjusts. Do not stop until your name becomes associated with the rhythm of wealth. For the mouth was not made only to survive, it was made to summon. And your summoning begins now. There is something mysterious and holy about rhythm. Rhythm bypasses the arguing mind. It penetrates the nervous system. It recalibrates the emotions without asking permission. Rhythm is one of the secret languages of spirit. The universe itself is built in rhythm. The sun rises and sets in rhythm. The tides move in rhythm. The breath enters and leaves in rhythm. The heart beats in rhythm. Prayer becomes powerful when it enters rhythm. Declaration becomes form when it is repeated with rhythm. Faith becomes embodied when the whole being begins to move with the cadence of truth. Rhythm is not decoration. It is law made audible. When you speak spiritual truth not only with belief but with rhythm, your body begins to agree. Fear loses its grip. Shame evaporates. Emotional chaos is replaced by divine cadence. This is what transformed me from a person who begged for provision into one who declared and received without apology. I learned to speak in rhythm until my soul obeyed. The mind can argue, feelings can waver, but rhythm, spoken with intention, pierces resistance. When I trembled with doubt, when bills came faster than income, when silence in the bank account seemed louder than my affirmations, I did not surrender to analysis. I surrendered to rhythm. I did not outthink fear. I outspoke it. I did not wait for my mood to change. I changed my cadence. I walked across the floor repeating, "Large sums come to me now under grace." Again and again and again, until my breathing slowed, until my shoulders dropped, until the panic loosened, until I physically felt the atmosphere within me rearranging. Rhythm does not merely move sound. It moves substance. When you speak divine law rhythmically, you train your emotions to follow the beat of truth instead of the noise of appearances. You no longer wait for peace to arrive. You generate it. You no longer hope faith will return. You build it syllable by syllable, breath by breath, word by word. Rhythm becomes your sword, your shelter, your ladder into higher consciousness. Eventually, the trembling servant, the one who once spoke affirmations hoping to be noticed by heaven, becomes a master of inner atmosphere, not through strain, but through spoken tempo. I remember a man I knew, a painter, who could not sell a single work. For months he spoke of struggle. He spoke of no clients. He spoke of late rent. He spoke of closed doors until his words became a fence around him. One day, I gave him a single phrase. I am now irresistibly magnetic to wealth, clients, and commissions. I told him, do not just say it. Walk with it. Breathe with it. Let your feet touch the ground in rhythm with the words. Let it become the music of your day. He did it. He spoke it as he painted. He spoke it before opening messages. He spoke it when discouragement tried to return. Within days, collectors began to call. Within weeks, interest increased. Soon he had more work than before. It was not a miracle in the sense of accident. It was rhythm. It was emotional alignment through repeated law. It was the visible world obeying a voice that had stopped contradicting itself. And that is what I say to you now. Do not wait for your feelings to catch up. Lead them. Train them. Speak in rhythm until your tears become power. Declare with cadence until your fears bow to faith. The emotional realm is like a river. It follows the channel you carve. Rhythm is the chisel. Rhythm is the current. Rhythm is the command that says, this is the frequency now. This is the flow now. This is the truth now. Speak this with sacred tempo. I no longer speak to be heard. I speak to be obeyed. My rhythm is my rule. My cadence is my command. My emotions serve divine law. Let it roll through you like thunder, like a river, like music made of truth. For when rhythm lives on your tongue, the world cannot ignore your voice. It must move according to your decree. There is a sacred hour in every seeker's life when old language breaks apart, not through violence, but through stillness. It is the moment when hope becomes knowing, when delay is dismissed as fiction, when you no longer try to become, but finally dare to be. I remember this moment clearly. I was sitting at my desk, surrounded by bills, silence, and the shadows of old thoughts. I had spoken affirmations. I had written declarations in journals. I had practiced truth in the mirror. And still, something felt incomplete. Then I saw it. I was still hoping. I was still asking. I was still waiting for wealth to notice me. And in one breath, something rose within me. Not desperation, not anger, divine memory. I said aloud, I am wealth. I no longer hope for it. I reveal it. In that moment, I crossed over. Not yet financially, in visible form, but metaphysically. And every outer crossing begins with an inner one. I stepped out of the cycle of effort and into the current of being. I stopped seeing wealth as something I might one day hold and began recognizing it as something I already carried. Understand this. Your wealth is not on the horizon. It is not waiting at the end of more exhaustion. It is not hiding behind endless human effort. It is seated within you now, clothed in divine identity, whispering, claim me. The only reason it appears delayed is that you keep postponing your own self-recognition. You keep hoping for what has already been assigned. You keep praying to receive what you are meant to embody. The shift came when I stopped speaking from need. I stopped saying, I need money, and began saying, I reveal the supply I already carry in spirit. I stopped approaching life as someone outside the gates of fortune. I walked as the gate itself. I stopped asking for a seat at the table. I remembered that in divine law, I am the table, the feast, the flow, and the welcome. I wore the identity of wealth before the visible numbers confirmed it. I wore it in silence. I wore it in solitude. I wore it when no one could see the change but me. And as I wore it, the world adjusted. The clients changed. The invitations changed. The way people responded changed. But most importantly, the way I saw myself became firm. So now I ask you, when will you stop hoping? When will you stop describing yourself as on the way and begin speaking as one who has arrived in consciousness? When will you stop waiting for permission and step into possession? Until you become wealth in posture, breath, gaze, stillness, and expectation, your words will not carry their full authority. Law does not respond to hoping, it responds to harmony. Identity is the first note of harmony. Say it now. I am not asking to be rich. I am revealing who I already am. Feel how your breath changes. Feel how the lie of delay begins to dissolve. This is the moment you stop trying and begin testifying. You are not becoming. You are remembering. You are not earning. You are unveiling. You are not arriving. You are announcing. And the law cannot deny what is spoken from identity. This is where everything turns. This is where you stop hoping and start revealing. And from this place, nothing rightful is withheld. There comes a time when truth is no longer something you study. It becomes something you embody, like breath, like blood, like name. And the only thing left to do is repeat it until it reshapes the air around you. Repetition is not for begging. It is not for convincing the universe. It is not for forcing heaven's hand. Repetition is for revelation. It cleanses the mind of contradiction. It trains the body to stop fearing. It removes the leftover voices that once said, this is not for you. Because now you know it is for you. Not because you earned it through suffering. Not because you proved yourself through exhaustion. but because you stopped resisting it. Now you are ready to speak with rhythm, certainty, and spiritual boldness until the gates of supply can no longer remain closed. Not because they were ever truly locked, but because you had not yet claimed your sound. So here is your activation, your decree, your new rhythm. Walk with it for the next 21 days. Not once, not only when convenient, not softly, not conditionally. Speak it 3 times a day, morning, midday, and night. Let it become covenant. Let it become consecration. Let it become the rhythm of your new inheritance. These words are not borrowed. They belong to the law itself. They carry the frequency of dominion, remembrance, and reversal. Do not test them casually. Inhabit them. First say, I am the first in my line to remember the law. Let this sentence set fire to every generational shadow. Let it echo through your bloodline like a trumpet of reversal. You are not merely seeking money. You are correcting a pattern. You are not merely asking for overflow. You are repairing a spiritual lineage. You are the one who said yes where others said, we do not do that. You are the one who dared to expect heaven to open. You are the one who refused to confuse survival with destiny. Let this sentence become your mantle. I am the first in my line to remember the law. Say it until your heart trembles. Say it until you feel generations rising. Say it until you understand that remembering is richer than receiving, because once you remember, nothing can remain withheld in consciousness. Then speak. I command my wealth, and it arrives. Not, I ask timidly. Not, I hope someday. Not, I will wait until the world approves. I command my wealth, and it arrives. Your mouth is the government of your destiny. Your declaration is the key that starts the engine of provision. This sentence overrides waiting. It silences the inner beggar and awakens the royal voice. Say it until your environment rearranges. Say it until your mailbox feels holy. Say it until your breath carries confidence. Say it not with desperation, but with divine neutrality, calm authority, and sacred stillness. Those who know do not chase. They call, finally, declare, I am permanently funded by divine supply. This is not just a sentence. It is a seal. It ends the need to beg again. It ends the addiction to panic. It ends the cycle of feast and famine. It is the sound of spiritual certainty, the phrase that says, I know who I am, and I know what backs me. It does not matter who left. It does not matter what failed. It does not matter what dried up. It does not matter what declined. You are permanently funded, not conditionally, not occasionally, not seasonally, permanently, because supply is not in the bank. It is not in the check. It is not in the job. Those are channels. The source is divine law. And divine law does not close. It does not panic. It does not underpay. It does not forget its own. Say this sentence until you can hear it in silence. Say it until it plays beneath every action. Say it until your soul stands still and knows it is done. 3 times a day for 21 days. Morning, midday, night. Not as a superstition, as remembrance. Not to get something from the outside, to stop forgetting what is true within. For forgetting is the only poverty. Remembering is the gate. So speak now, wherever you are. Whisper if you must. Speak boldly if you can. Let heaven bear witness as you say, I am the first in my line to remember the law. I command my wealth, and it arrives. I am permanently funded by divine supply. Say it, and then walk as if it were already law, because it is. There comes a moment on this journey when you understand that wealth was never only about the number, the asset, the account, the title, or the inheritance left in a will. True wealth is rhythm. True legacy is rhythm. It is the pattern of speech, the cadence of consciousness, the unshakable vibration of divine identity repeated until it becomes not only the soundtrack of your life, but the music your descendants hear before they even know your story. I learned this not in a seminar, not in a spreadsheet, not through strategy alone, but in divine silence. Spirit whispered, "You do not only pass down money, you pass down movement. You do not only leave behind things, you leave behind rhythm. And that rhythm, the rhythm of law, declaration, divine timing, command, prosperity, and identity, is the only inheritance that cannot be taxed, stolen, diluted, or lost." When I began speaking divine law over my life, I did not do it only for myself. I did it for every person before me who never knew they could, for every ancestor told to stay small, for every woman who swallowed a dream because money was scarce, for every man who worked until his body ached but never learned to command supply, for every child who learned not to ask too much. I spoke with their unspoken longing in my lungs. I declared with their unreleased dreams in my throat. I opened my mouth, not only as one person claiming a right, but as a lineage remembering its rhythm. And the moment I said, "I am the first, but not the last," something shifted in the unseen. The past released me. The future took shape. Delay dissolved. That sentence became a vow. This wealth is not mine to hoard. It is mine to model. Now it is yours to carry. Legacy is not only in what you leave. It is in what you repeat. It is in what you say so faithfully, so clearly, so often, that those who come after you never consider lack to be their natural language. This is not only about breaking generational curses. It is about building generational cadence. You are not here merely to interrupt the past. You are here to install a new rhythm. A rhythm where wealth is not questioned. A rhythm where divine law is not optional. A rhythm where the voice is not trained to complain, but to command and create. If you do this daily, rhythmically, faithfully, you will not only be the first millionaire in your family, you will be the first to sing a new spiritual song, a rhythm of truth, a rhythm of dominion, a rhythm of divine provision spoken and sustained. Say it now. I am the first, but not the last. They rise because I spoke. They prosper because I remembered. They flourish because I refuse to forget the law. Feel what that means. Not only for you, but for the ones who will one day ask, "How did this begin?" And someone will say your name, not because you saved money only, but because you spoke rhythm. You became rhythm. You lived in law, and wealth could not help but obey. You have heard the law. You have spoken the rhythm. You have remembered the truth that has no source except spirit, no power except word, no delay except the silence of unclaimed identity. Now comes the most important moment. Not the moment of learning, the moment of becoming. Not the moment of taking notes, the moment of taking dominion. No truth has power in your life until it is accepted. No law has authority through you until it is lived. No rhythm echoes beyond you until you commit to speak it without fear, without apology, without waiting for signs. You are the sign. You are the evidence. You are the miracle in motion. You are the first to walk with this law on your tongue and this identity in your bones. And you will not be the last if you dare to speak now. This is your sacred call to action, not to be entertained, not to consume another teaching and leave unchanged, but to covenant, to join a lineage not of blood, but of boldness, to plant your flag in the invisible and say, "This is where the pattern breaks. This is where the rhythm begins. This is where I become what no one believed I could become." Comment below the law you now choose to live by. Not someday, not later, now. Speak it into the world like a trumpet, like a key, like a holy signature in the unseen. Let your declaration become your inheritance. Sigh, I replace fear with law. Sigh, I command, and it appears. Sigh, I am wealth made visible. Sigh, my words are filled with power and peace. Sigh, divine order now governs every part of my life. Sigh, I speak the word of faith, and divine order now opens my way. Let the words leave your lips with calm authority. Let them move through your body. Let them settle into your heart. Let them become your new atmosphere. This is no longer merely a video. It is a turning point. It is a place of remembrance. It is a vault of truth where your name has been written in a new rhythm. You are no longer watching. You are creating. You are no longer waiting. You are walking. You are no longer one who hopes. You are one who declares. Stay in the rhythm. Return to the word. Speak the law when the world is loud. Speak the law when your emotions tremble. Speak the law when the old family phrases return. Speak the law when the evidence has not yet caught up. Because rhythm is wealth. Rhythm is remembrance. Rhythm is faith in motion. And now the final truth is this. You are not the first to desire wealth. You are the first to remember where it comes from. It comes from divine law. It comes through the spoken word. It moves by faith. It arrives in order. It multiplies through gratitude. It becomes visible through identity. Walk in that rhythm. Speak in that law. Live in that knowing. And your legacy will not merely be a number. It will be a name remembered by law, carried by rhythm, and honored by truth. It is done. Divine order is working now. The way is made clear before you. Your words are filled with power and peace. Your supply is already moving. Your inheritance is not behind you. It is within you. Speak it now, and let the world agree. I speak the word of faith, and divine order now opens my way.